It's hard to believe that America, home of the free, once had a population of almost 4 million slaves, one of whom was the now famous abolitionist Frederick Douglass. In his youth, he spent some time learning from the Columbian orator. This book, composed by Caleb Bingham, is a collection of essays, poems, and dialogues that was primarily constructed to improve public speaking skills. Douglass, who later would become an orator himself, took from the book not only skills needed to convey his ideas, but compelling ideas that would transform how he thought about the world. According to one scholarly interpretation, Douglass used phrases from the orator in his self-made men speech. Although he had never directly spoke about it, one of the passages, entitled Dialogue Between a White Inhabitant of the United States and an Indian, was likely one of the first times that he had learned that prejudice in America wasn't confined to the African American slaves. In the dialogue, a Native American tried to get across the point of how unjust and heartless the settlers had been to his people. Yet the white man countered with ignorance and bias, even going as far to say that the protective laws of the nation don't apply to them because of their low status among the races. Fast forward 50 years, slavery is over, and Frederick Douglass is making a speech entitled The Composite Nation. Here he speaks of a future where the United States could be a mix of all races and backgrounds and still be the most prominent country in the world. What a bold prediction for a country still reeling from the aftermath of a civil war seated in racial inequality. One of the most prominent lines in the speech was a statement about Native Americans, one that draws back to the passage in the Columbian orator. Europe and Africa are already here, and the Indian was here before either. He stands today between the two extremes, black and white, too proud to claim fraternity with either, and yet too weak to withstand the power of either. Heretofore, the policy of our government has been governed by race pride rather than by wisdom. Douglass believed that if the country could get to a point where everyone was on equal footing, people from all nationalities could come to the United States and thrive. When reading Douglass's speech, a childhood memory comes to mind: a Schoolhouse Rock episode about the Great American Melting Pot. A children's educational television show from the 1970s, it touched upon subjects from math to history. In this case, the episode was explaining the population composition of the United States and showed that all the different nationalities that made up the population today. Douglass was ahead of his time in envisioning the future of America. As the speech goes on, his focus shifts from the present racial makeup of the country to its future, particularly with regard to Chinese immigration. At the time, California was flooded with Chinese immigrants who wanted to have a piece of the riches from the gold rush. Now that the rush was over, many Chinese, according to Douglass, would soon head east. Yet he took note of their harsh treatment in the U.S. and the way it might be taken advantage of in the future. Already has California assumed a bitterly unfriendly attitude towards the Chinamen, and that the ex-slave owners would rather have laborers who will work for nothing, but as they cannot get the Negroes to work on these terms, they want the Chinamen who, they hope, will work for nothing. Regardless, Douglass believed that the Chinese immigrants would not last long in these conditions. Experiencing American freedom would somehow make them immune to such attempts. Douglass believed that they would eventually succeed and thrive. In fact, all the people who come to the United States would have the natural rights that were held from so many just years before. Douglass was either ahead of his time or overly optimistic, depending on how you look at it. 13 years after giving his Composite Nation speech, the Chinese Exclusion Bill was passed, making it very difficult for the Chinese to come to America. It would be some time before the bars would be lifted on immigration, and it would be long after Douglass had passed away. Nevertheless, it seems that the road Douglass predicted for America was correct. It was just longer and bumpier than he expected.